John 8, verses 43 to 51. Continue in that long speech that Jesus had the day after the Feast of Tabernacles. Page 1073, 1073, your Geneva Bible, verses 43 to 51. This is Jesus talking as we begin. Verse 43. Jesus says to the Pharisees and other Jews, "Why do ye not understand my talk? Because ye cannot hear my word. Ye are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye will do. He hath been a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, then speaketh he of his own, for he is a liar, and the father thereof. And because I tell you the truth, you believe me not. Which of you can rebuke me of sin? And if I say the truth, why do ye not believe me? He that is of God heareth God's words. Ye therefore hear them not, because ye are not of God." Then answered the Jews and said unto him, "Say we not well that thou art a Samaritan, and hast a devil?" Jesus answered, "I have not a devil, but I honor my Father, and ye have dishonored me. And I seek not mine own praise, but there is one that seeketh it and judgeth. Verily, verily, I say unto you, if a man keep my word, he shall never see death." Continue in our speech after the Feast of Tabernacles. The title of our message this morning, The Elect and Spiritual Hearing. Spiritual hearing. In last week's text, Jesus encountered a number of Jews that believed that being a physical descendant of Abraham was the same as being a spiritual descendant of Abraham. Jesus explained that those who imitate the works and beliefs of Abraham, those are the real spiritual descendants of Abraham. And of course, Abraham looked forward to the coming of a Messiah. And he believed God's messengers when he sent them to the earth. And so should anyone who wants to call themselves Abraham's descendants. Since many Jews would rather have killed the Messiah, who in this case is God's messenger, than listen to him, it demonstrated that they were not really spiritual descendants of Abraham at all. There are 4 points to our message this morning. In verse 43, the elect and spiritual hearing. Verses 44 and 45, spiritual hearing and the devil's children. Verses 46 and 47, spiritual hearing and God's children. And verses 48 to 51, further accusations and Jesus' defense. In this lengthy speech, beginning at the beginning of chapter 8, Jesus has addressed various hostile religious groups, such as the Pharisees, also many citizens of Jerusalem, some lingering pilgrims that were in Galilee. Yet within this crowd, many Jews, we learn, had come to believe. In these verses 43 to 51 this morning, Jesus continues to endure a great deal of hostile speech, such as flat contradictions, slanderous insinuations, sarcasm, disdain, ignorance, arrogance, boasting in being born Jewish, and ridicule, all which will eventually end in an attempt at open violence. When we get to the end of this, they picked up stones to throw at him. Yet, for the sake of the elect, we read that Jesus endures. We come to our first point, verse 43, the elect and spiritual hearing. Verse 43, Jesus is saying this to the Jews. "Why do ye not understand my talk? Because you cannot hear my word." Jesus here has lost patience with the Jewish opposition, mostly because of their spiritually ignorant questions, which they're constantly asking Jesus, such as in chapter 8, verse 19, when they say, "Where is your Father?" Or, "He is not going to kill himself, is he?" in chapter 8, verse 22. Or when they say to Jesus, "You, who are you?" chapter 8, verse 25. Or, "How is it that you say you will become free?" they ignorantly ask in chapter 8, verse 33. And there are others, many ignorant questions. Jesus explains where this spiritual foolishness comes from. It's because, he says, they cannot bear to hear the word. Christians, you and I, hear and see differently from the world. We see and hear through the ears and eyes of faith. We might call this spiritual hearing. Jesus has said, those who have ears, let them hear, Matthew 11:15. And ye have eyes but do not see, and ears but do not hear, Mark 8:18. Of course, it's not that they couldn't hear. It's that they couldn't hear with the ears of faith. Jesus, of course, was talking about two kinds of hearing. Spiritual hearing by faith and worldly hearing. Spiritual hearing makes no appeal to reason, logic, or intellect, because none of these things does any man any good. If this is all a man has, then he will never understand what Jesus in the Bible says. These Jews cannot hear the word because they do not have spiritual hearing. They do not have ears that can hear the truth. They only have ears that can hear lies. They only hear the lies. They have an evil will which prevents the ear from hearing the truth, as do all people who aren't Christians. The spiritual language of divine truth is foreign to the unbelieving ear and to these unbelieving Jews. These Jews may claim that they are God's children, but when God talks to them in the language of God and of God's house, they are as if they are deaf. A child knows his father's language. A child knows his father's voice. The fact that they do not recognize the voice of Christ shows that they have a different father. They cannot hear the voice of the Father when he speaks through the Son. They can only hear the voice of the devil when he is whispering them to murder Jesus. That's the voice they hear. They hear the voice of the devil. They don't hear the voice of the Father through the Son. Verses 44 and 45. Spiritual hearing in the devil's children. Verse 44. Jesus says more to them. Ye are of your father, the devil. And the lusts of your father ye will do. He hath been a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, then speaketh he of his own, for he is a liar, and the father thereof, the father of lies. Though the Jews might consider themselves physical children of Abraham, Jesus tells them that morally and spiritually they have another father. And now he names him, the devil. This is particularly scathing because God created the Jews to be his exclusive people. But they have betrayed their first father for another father. Just as the devil is the father of murder and lies, so also the Jews are imitating their father by spreading lies and plotting the murder of Jesus, doing what their father tells them to do. It was the devil who caused the fall of man, which resulted in the death of all mankind. That's why he's the father of murders. He is truly the father of murders, for the devil murdered the entire human race when he tempted Adam. The devil accomplished this through a lie when he tempted Adam. So Christ combines the lie with the murder, puts them together because they belong together. Lies lead to murder. The children of the devil are naturally inflamed with the same lusts as their father. They get or inherit these lusts through their spiritual descent from him. These lusts are not passive in their hearts, but part of an active will that goes on willing to carry out these lusts. They're imitating their father. The evil desire that comes from the devil is conceived in the heart and born in the deeds of those who desire murder and lies. These statements reveal the origin of untruth, falsehood, lies, and place the origin of all that bad stuff with the devil. Lies had no existence before the devil or apart from the devil. There's no such thing. Because the devil is a liar and the father of lies, all those who lie learn lying from him. But unlike the devil, it did not originate with us. That's why we're not the father of lies. We're the children of liars if we lie. He's the father of lies because he gave birth to the first lie. When the devil does not lie, he must misquote or misparaphrase. Even when he speaks truthful words, he must place them in the wrong context. Jesus makes it clear that the devil has a strong influence on the world as a liar and a murderer, and those who practice lies and murder have their father to thank for. Because lying was the means by which the devil murdered our race, lying is mentioned here as the second lust, murder being the first. Truth and the devil are wholly foreign. In fact, they're completely antagonistic to each other. They're like light and dark. Can't exist at the same time. The devil has no place in the sphere of the truth, and truth has no place in the sphere of the devil. The truth, however, as you and I know, is also the expression of actual reality. Truth is the way it actually is, when all the lies are removed. As the lie is always pretended reality. A lie is never real reality. It's always just pretend reality. Truth loves to express what it really is. The lie never dares to do that, because reality exposes it. The two are powers with no peace between them. Truth's power is eternal, because the reality of God, who is the embodiment of truth, can never cease. The power of the lie is ephemeral, or what we say, temporary, because it is always eventually exposed. Pretense is always exposed. On the final judgment day, it will all be exposed. God himself, of course, is the essence of truth. The lie is the devil's vain invention. To receive the truth, of course, is to connect with God. To yield to the lie is to be the child of the devil. Jesus here declares the existence, the personality, the character, and the power of the devil and the effect his lies will have on the human race. Jesus says, opposed to that, verse 45, and because I tell you the truth, you believe me not. When Jesus says he tells them the truth, that word truth, he refers, of course, to everything that he's been saying, but specifically to those things that he's been sent to reveal from the Father that lead to salvation. Specifically, it involves the doctrine of total depravity. All men need a Savior. Man's natural inability to save himself. The plan of God for man's salvation. The sending of his Son to merit that salvation on our account. And the punishment for all those who reject the Son. That's specifically what he's talking about. The truth. Because man is depraved and proud, he does not, by nature, welcome this truth. Mostly because it reveals his damnable character and lost condition. We don't like the truth. It always makes us look bad. Children of the father of lies certainly do not want to hear the truth. So here Jesus, having rebuked the devil, turns to criticize the Jews, who he here is called the devil's children. His statement is this, and because I tell you the truth, you believe me not. That is proof positive that they are descendants of the one who stands not in the truth, because the truth is not in the devil, and neither is it in the Jews. The Jews are saying the same thing the devil says. Truth always, of course, demands faith. This is the very law of our moral nature. To reject the truth because it is the truth is to turn devilish. That's what the text is saying. As sons of the father of lies, their souls have an affinity only for lies. They believe only liars and lies and invent lies to preserve their own false reality. Liars have to keep lying, to keep their false reality false. Because when truth is revealed, they of course are exposed for being liars. Verse 46 and 47, spiritual hearing now in God's children. How do God's children hear differently than the devil's children? Verse 46, Jesus says this, which of you can rebuke me of sin? And if I say the truth, why do you not believe me? This statement about Jesus declaring the truth is in direct contrast to what he's just said about the devil. As the devil's very nature is to lie, so the very nature of Jesus is the truth. The devil's incapable of the truth. Jesus is incapable of lying. When the devil opens his mouth, out of it flows what is his own, lies. When Jesus declares his thoughts, These truths coming from him are the very expression of his being and his person. They are the truth. He is incapable of not telling the truth. He has convicted and is here convicting the Jews of sins with unanswerable proofs, such as he's pointing out that in their hearts they want to murder him. He points out their open refusal to accept the truth and their correct connection to the devil and his lies. The Jews can't answer these charges. He, on the other hand, is saying, I'm the very opposite of them and their father, the devil, because his very nature is the truth. By the Jews remaining silent and failing to name any sin of Jesus, they are furnishing the strongest kind of evidence that they are in the wrong and Jesus must be in the right. Jesus here, when he tells them, tell me, what sin is in me? He's using the generic use of the word sin here. He's not asking them if they've ever seen any one specific sin, but if they have ever, at any time, ever observed the smallest trace of sin ever in his person. That's what he's challenging them to do. Sin here, of course, means any and every kind of sin. Jesus is asking, have you ever seen that in me? Name it. Later, the Jews, of course, will confuse accusing Jesus in an evil court as sin. Of course, he didn't sin. But for now, they stand convicted because neither they nor anybody else could possibly show that they were not guilty, exactly as Jesus had charged them with being guilty. Their sole defense had consisted in lies, such as saying, we're not slaves to sin, or when they were, that they were spiritually children of Abraham, and that God was their father when it was the devil. These are all lies that they're telling to argue with Jesus' truth. Jesus here, therefore, challenges them to take the entire category of sin, the whole catalog, and find one point in which they can convict him. Since there is no sin in Jesus, everything that he says is and must be pure truth. How can a man who's never sinned not tell the truth? Jesus is saying. If Jesus never says anything but truth, then why don't they believe him? But the more the Jews here were presented with the truth, the more the truth stung them, driving them more and more to murder the speaker of genuine truth, because truth reveals lies, and they don't like to be seen as liars. They could not live in a world where truth existed to expose their lies, therefore they must kill the Son in order to keep his truth from exposing their lies. An unreasonable act, as the saying goes, an unreasonable act cannot have a reasonable explanation. When truth is rejected because it is truth, all that can be said is that the act is the height of unreason. It's vicious and it stands self-condemned. Now listen to what Jesus says about his spiritual children, you and I. Verse 47. He that is of God heareth God's words. Ye therefore hear them not, because ye are not of God. Here we learn that there are some who do hear with Christ what Christ is saying. God's children hear the words of the Son and believe him. God's children are drawn to the voice of their Father. When they hear the voice of their Father, they recognize it, like you and I. In contrast to God's children, Jesus returns to those who will not hear. Jesus knows their thoughts. He knows what they're thinking. They're thinking, this is what they want to say to Jesus. We do not recognize the truth in you because you don't speak the truth, say the Jews to Jesus. If this were true, that Jesus had been lying, then of course he'd be a sinner. And this is why Jesus asks them, oh, you're accusing me of sin? Which of you rebuked me of sin? And tell me what my sin is. Or, who can convict and prove the charge that I'm a sinner? Here, you'll also notice that Jesus believed that he had no sin. If he has never been observed to sin, then why will they not believe that he speaks the truth? Just as those who have the devil as a father are flattered by the lust he offers, so also those of God who hear his claims to be God desire to believe that he is who he says he is. The major premise, of course, here is this, that the real children of God, spiritually, by faith, hear his words. The minor premise is that these Jews do not hear God's words because they don't hear with the ears of faith. Therefore, the only possible conclusion must be that they are not of God. Here then is the real reason why these Jews refuse to believe the truth, which Jesus declares. They are not of God, He's not their Father, and therefore they want nothing from God. Our text concludes with our final point, verses 48 to 51, further accusations in Jesus' defense here. Verse 48. Then answered the Jews and said unto him, Say we not well that thou art a Samaritan? What does that have to do with anything that they're arguing about? And hast the devil. The Jews are, of course, unwilling here to admit defeat. They resort to just lying insults. The first insult that comes to their mind is just call Jesus a Samaritan. So fierce was the Jews' hatred for the Samaritans, as this is the meanest thing they could think of on short notice to say. So they say, you're a Samaritan. Apparently this had become a popular rumor among the Jews. They had also spread the rumor that Jesus had a devil or a demon. Apparently this was because Jesus had rebuked people who believed that the Trinity only existed of the Father. The boiling rage of the Jews here breaks out in a vicious insult, which is in a sense an open confession of defeat in their war against the truth and at the same time vindication for Jesus. For they have proved by their rejection of the truth that they are actually children of the devil. When the Jews here accuse Jesus of being a Samaritan and having a devil, it's part of the same insult. They mean to say that by denying that they are true children of Abraham and of God, and by calling them the devil's offspring, Jesus, though he is a Jew, he speaks like a Samaritan, one of the hated race, who would reciprocate with equal hate. And though he is sane enough, he speaks like a demon, like one possessed with an evil spirit that uses Jesus' tongue to vilify the Jews, God's dear people. In other words, the insult goes like this. Since they regard themselves as the holy race, anyone who says that they're not the holy race must be speaking like a Samaritan and must, like the Samaritans, have a devil in them. Verse 49. Jesus answered, I have not a devil, but I honor my Father, and ye have dishonored me. Jesus denies, first of all, that his Father is the devil, or that he has a demon. It was, in fact, the opposite. Jesus was sent to earth by the Father by his zeal for his Father's honor. How can they think that they are honoring the Father by heaping insults upon the Father's Son? They dishonor the Son by saying he has a demon, but even worse, says Jesus, by saying that they're dishonoring the Father. Jesus responds to their accusations with complete calm. Jesus simply contrasts himself and the Jews by telling them what he is doing and what they are doing. Jesus does not bother to respond to the insult about being a Samaritan. It's just another lie that Jesus chooses to ignore. Also, Jesus had no hatred for the Samaritans. He just converted one. As do the Jews, so he does not mind being called a Samaritan. He doesn't have to defend it. But he must answer the charge of being possessed by a devil, otherwise none of his words would carry any weight if the crowd came to believe that. The contrast that Jesus makes is simply this to the Jews. He says, I am honoring God, you are dishonoring God. The implication is one of us has a demon, but it's not the one honoring God. Since I am the one, says Jesus, honoring God, you must have the demon. For your works dishonor God, just like the works of your father, the devil. Jesus honors the Father in the very act of proving that these vicious Jews are not the Father's children, and when he tells them just what they are. By dishonoring the Father, they are also dishonoring Jesus, who is engaged in the act of honoring the Father. Jesus not for 1 second could ever do anything but honor the Father. The dishonor heaped on the Son falls directly upon the head of the Father. Here again, the Jews show how certainly they are not the Father's children, but the offspring of a being, the devil, that lives to bring dishonor upon the Father. Verse 50, Jesus goes on, And I seek not my own praise, but there is one that seeketh it and judgeth it. Jesus, of course, does not need to vindicate his own honor. He has the Father to do that, he says, and the Father always judges using righteous judgment. And therefore Jesus makes no further retaliation. He is content to be judged by his Father. The Father, of course, seeks the glory of the Son, and the Son returns that glory to the Father. The Father also judges. It will be the Father who will justify Jesus, and it will be Jesus who upholds the Father's honor. The Father will judge and condemn all those who drag down his honor by insulting his Son and messenger. Jesus is, of course, now the visible image of the Father's glory. So when they call the Son's glory devilish, they call the glory of the Father devilish also. Therefore, Jesus leaves the verdict in the hands of the Father. Our final verse, verse 51. Verily, verily, or truly, truly, I say unto you, if a man keep my word, he shall never see death. Jesus here tells them plainly that eternal death awaits all those who do not look upon the sacrifice of the Son for the forgiveness of sins. No Jew will be able to say that they never had an opportunity to listen to the proclamation of the gospel. Anyone who keeps Christ's word by accepting it by faith and obeying it and standing guard over it will never see eternal spiritual death. Spiritual death, of course, is separation from God and the eternal weight of God's wrath and condemnation forever. Jesus here concludes his point by returning to his theme of verse 32 and verses 34 to 36, when he originally told the Jews, the believing Jews, to remain in his word and to not become slaves to sin. What Jesus seeks to do with these former verses, and now again with this verse, is to place the gospel beside the law. Now, we spoke at great length that the law doesn't save. We know that. But here, first Jesus is convicting of sin, and then he's opening the door of salvation from this sin. Sin, of course, is like a wall of fire with which the law surrounds the sinner. All it does is condemn him to hell. The gospel opens a wide gate of escape through faith in the Savior and his word. When Jesus says here, if a man keeps my word, it refers to anyone. Only God knows what elect man will accept it. So Jesus says that any man or any sinner can open that door, but it is also personal and singular. Any man or every man on his own accord must open that door. Jesus knows that many will keep his word and therefore never see spiritual death. Notice here also that Jesus specifically says, if a man keeps my word, as against the word of anyone else. Only the